The morning she can let her wedding, the city woke up as usual, unaware that a life built on precision and power was quietly collapsing behind the glass walls of a penthouse suite, where Elena Hart stood in her wedding dress, staring at her reflection as if it belonged to a stranger who had finally told the truth. The invitations were printed, the guests were flying in, the headlines were already drafted in society blogs. Yet her chest felt hollow, and the silence inside her was louder than any scandal that might follow. She realized in that stillness that success had taught her how to command rooms, but it had never taught her how to love without performing. That if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that life can change when we least expect it, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Because stories like this connect us across the world in ways numbers and titles never can. Elena Hart was the youngest CEO in the company's history, a woman who had learned early that excellence was the safest armor in a world that measured worth in quarterly results and relentless ambition. She had grown up counting every penny, watching her mother work herself into exhaustion, promising herself that one day she would build a life where fear could never reach her again. And she did. She rose through ranks, outperformed expectations, and earned respect that bordered on awe. But somewhere along the climb, warmth became inefficiency, vulnerability became a liability, and love became something to schedule between board meetings. Her fiancé looked perfect on paper, supportive, polished, and strategically ideal. Yet, standing there in white silk, Elena finally admitted she had been rehearsing affection rather than feeling it. When the wedding was canceled, explanations were handled by assistants. Apologies were delivered through lawyers, and the world received a clean, professional statement about irreconcilable differences. What the world did not see was Elena packing a small overnight bag herself for the first time in years, driving without a driver, letting the city blur past as memories she had buried began to surface. One memory, in particular, refused to stay quiet. It was of a rainy evening months ago when her car had broken down after a late office visit, and she had stepped into the life of a man who never tried to impress her. Michael Turner was a single father who worked under Elena's leadership, a senior analyst who never stayed late unless it truly mattered, and who left every day at exactly 6 o'clock to pick up his son. At first, Elena had considered this a lack of ambition, something she might eventually need to correct. But over time, she noticed the quiet excellence in his work, the way he solved problems without drama, the way he listened more than he spoke. On that rainy night, it was Michael who had offered her a ride home, apologizing for the child's seat in the back and the crumbs on the floor, embarrassed by a life that did not look impressive but felt real. Michael's life had narrowed after his wife passed away from an illness that did not care about plans or promises. Overnight, he became both mother and father, learning to braid hair, pack lunches, and carry grief without letting it spill onto a small boy who still believed his dad could fix anything. Love for Michael was not grand gestures, but consistency, showing up even when he was tired, even when he was afraid. He had once loved deeply, and losing that love had taught him that pretending was the cruelest thing a person could do. When Elena showed up at Michael's door that night, she was not the CEO he reported to. She was a woman with red eyes, shaking hands, and a truth she could no longer ignore. Michael had opened the door, stunned, still wearing the same sweater he wore every winter, his son asleep in the next room. The house quiet in that tender way only homes built on care can be. Elena did not explain much. She did not need to. The weight she carried said everything, and for the first time in years, she allowed herself to sit in silence with someone who did not need her to be impressive. In the days that followed, rumors spread through the company like static. Employees whispered about the canceled wedding, about the CEO's sudden absence, about the tension they sensed in meetings when she returned, quieter, changed. Michael noticed it, too. Elena began to see people, not positions. She asked questions she had never asked before. She listened, and when she looked at Michael, it was with a softness that unsettled them both. He was careful, guarded by loss and responsibility, aware of the imbalance of power and the danger of hope. She was learning how to exist without a script, terrified of what honesty might cost her. The true breaking point came during a routine presentation when Michael's voice cracked unexpectedly. not from nerves, but from exhaustion he had hidden for too long. Elena watched as the room shifted uncomfortably, executives glancing away, unwilling to acknowledge something so human in a space designed to be sterile. And then she saw it clearly. The way she had built systems that rewarded sacrifice without care. The way she had once believed strength meant never needing anyone. After the meeting, she made changes that surprised everyone. Flexible hours, family support policies, quiet acts of repair that never made headlines but changed lives. Michael tried to keep his distance. Convinced that what he felt was dangerous and impossible, he reminded himself that his son needed stability, not complications, that love was not something you reached for when you still had someone depending on you. But Elena kept showing up, not with gifts or promises, but with patience. She learned his son's name, learned how to sit on the floor and listen to stories about dinosaurs, learned how to laugh without checking the time. Slowly, the walls Michael had built began to thin, not because Elena demanded entry, but because she respected them. The night Michael finally broke down was not dramatic. It was quiet and devastating, the kind of sobbing that comes from holding yourself together for too long. He confessed not with words meant to persuade, but with raw truth that he could not survive another lie, that he could never fake loving someone again, that he needed love to be safe and real for his child's sake. Elena did not interrupt. She did not defend herself. She simply stayed, understanding that this was the cost of being trusted. Choosing Michael meant choosing a life that could not be controlled. It meant public scrutiny, corporate backlash, and the possibility of failure in a way no business loss had ever threatened her. Elena faced the board with a steadiness born not of ambition but of clarity. She redefined success, stepping back from the relentless pace she had once worked, redistributing power and allowing others to lead. Some called it weakness, others called it courage, Elena called it truth. Months passed, and the city adjusted. Headlines moved on. What remained was a home filled with small routines, school mornings, shared dinners, and a child who learned that love could arrive again without replacing what was lost. Elena learned that leadership did not disappear when you softened, that respect could grow when fear was removed, and that the bravest decision she ever made was not canceling a wedding, but choosing to live without pretending. Michael, once the quiet man in the background, stood taller, not because he gained power, but because he gained peace. He learned that opening his heart again did not betray the past, but honored it. And Elena, who had built an empire from discipline and denial, finally understood that love was not a distraction from purpose, but its deepest form. But if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that it's never too late to choose honesty, compassion, and real connection, please take a moment to engage with this video. Because your support helps stories like this reach others who may be standing at the edge of their own brave decision. Please comment before the ending and tell us what part of this story stayed with you the most. In the end, there was no grand announcement, no perfect photograph, just two imperfect people building something quiet and true, proving that sometimes the greatest success is not what we achieve, but who we finally allow ourselves to love.